How can you tell if somebody is a clone?
I think you potentially could be.
You think the president may not even be Joe Biden?
I am not going to gaslight myself into believing that is the same person.
You're saying that these mass shootings are some kind of government conspiracy to control us.
The internet is so censored.
Saying that they're going around shooting up schools to advance gun control. That is an insult to people that have lost children. Have you ever questioned whether the government is hiding the truth about UFOs? If the moon landing was actually faked, or if 9/11 was an inside job? Well, if so, you're not alone. Tonight, we're going to meet a young woman who believes she was banned from TikTok for some of her out-of-the-box beliefs, and another who believes that the Aurora movie theater shooter was a government asset and part of a mind control experiment. So is there any truth to these theories and a whole lot of others that you see floating around the internet? You see them on TikTok, you see them on some of these sites. And who are the people who believe these things? Now, Gubba believes the Illuminati, an elite group of wealthy and powerful people, are running the world, and she actually thinks I could possibly be one of them.
I think conspiracy theorist is a term to downplay anybody who finds truth. So whenever you speak anything outside of the narrative, you are labeled a conspiracy theorist. When you see the stripes in the sky flying and you're saying, hey, they are geoengineering, they are modifying the weather, you're instantly a conspiracy theorist, even though there are patents and there's research to back it up. Whenever you say, hey, they are poisoning us in our food, or sunscreen is causing serious health issues and not actually protecting you from the sun, you're labeled a conspiracy theorist. But I know for me, it's a conspiracy realist, because these things are happening and it's truth. I think the pandemic was completely orchestrated by the world leaders, and then on top of them, whoever's pulling the strings, and at the top we have Satan. Satan is behind every single conspiracy, everything evil, everything malicious, everything greed in our world. He uses the government leaders, he uses politicians, he uses celebrities, and all of that probably makes up the Illuminati. A lot of different world leaders, celebrities, whoever needs one, is wearing 5-second masks. And what 5-second masks are is they are disguises that were created by the CIA. They made these silicone masks that you would put on in 5 seconds. They contorted with your face and your facial movements. The CIA head of disguise in the 80s, Yana Mendez, went and met with President George Bush Sr., and he didn't even know that she was there. He just thought that it was somebody else. Until at the end of the meeting, she took off the mask and he couldn't believe it. At the end of the day, I want you to question everything, because if you don't, we'll be stuck in the Matrix forever.
How can you tell if somebody is a clone?
I'm not sure how you'd be able to tell somebody is a clone exactly, but I do believe in the example of Taylor Swift. There is a theory that Taylor Swift is a clone, and that ties back into the Church of Satan. You have Anton LaVey, he was the founder of Church of Satan, and his daughter, Zena LaVey, who is on record talking about how they use music to control people. And she has an uncanny resemblance to Taylor Swift. What are the odds? I think very slim.
Okay. So you think that I could be an Illuminati member?
I think you potentially could be an Illuminati member, Dr. Phil. I don't think that you get this amount of power and influence and media coverage without taking a deal.
With who?
The Illuminati.
Well, how would I know?
They would come and say, Dr. Phil, we can offer you all the money, we can offer you power, we can offer you influence. You just need to take a deal with us.
You haven't been offered a deal.
I haven't been offered a deal to sell my soul, for power or influence. What's happening to me is when I'm sharing truth on social media like TikTok, I'm being banned.
Oh, I get shadow banned all the time.
I saw you on TikTok.
Trust me, they throttle me down. I get banned all the time. I do things in favor of Israel and speak out against anti-Semitism. I get videos kicked off the internet all the time. That wouldn't happen if I was part of the Illuminati, would it?
Unless that's the narrative that they want you to play.
Oh. So the Illuminati owns Hollywood, the media, the food industry, and controls the government.
I believe so.
Okay. And they're agents of Satan.
I believe so.
Really?
Really?
You said that Taylor Swift is a clone, and in 2016 she disappeared for a few years.
She could be a clone. She could be multiple clones.
Well, she didn't disappear for a few years.
She went off grid. Yes, she did. There was the Kanye controversy. She disappeared and went radio silent. And then she erased all of her social media and came back with a snake representation. Her first song,
With a what?
A snake representation. It filled all of her social medias, and that was her symbol that she came back with.
And what's that mean?
A snake could be symbolic of Lucifer.
Well, it could also be a snake.
These celebrities, they have very satanic symbols that they put into their music videos.
Yeah. And you say they could be wearing masks, and it isn't really even them.
Yes.
Could I be wearing a mask?
You could. Could I get up and look?
I don't know. How are you going to look?
I'm just gonna.
Yeah, go ahead. What do you think?
I think that the technology is so advanced that.
Let me tell you, sister, if I was wearing a mask, it wouldn't look like this. It'd look a whole lot better than this. But could you tell?
I think, the technology might be so advanced. So I don't know, Dr. Phil.
All right, next, Gubba says she believes dinosaurs are fake and the bones in museums are possibly paper mache. But there is one thing she does believe in and says there is proof. We're going to find out what that is after the break.
I think Dr. Phil potentially could be in the Illuminati because I don't think you can get very big, have a following, be saying some of the things that he does without being a part of that group. He could have a clone here who's doing the show, but then the real Dr. Phil is off on an island somewhere on the beach while the clone Dr. Phil's doing all the grunt work, 40 hours a week plus, but real Dr. Phil's out there just enjoying life. I don't know, but I'm willing to have that conversation with him.
Getting quality sleep can be a struggle. Beyond feeling tired, poor sleep affects focus at work, patience with loved ones, and leaves you constantly drained. Finding a solution is key. That's where Beam's Dream Powder comes in. This healthy hot cocoa has completely transformed sleep for many. With flavors like cinnamon cocoa, sea salt caramel, and brownie batter, each serving is only 15 calories and 0 grams of sugar. Guilt-free and effective. Dream's all-natural ingredients help you fall asleep faster, stay asleep longer, and wake up feeling refreshed. It's easy to add to a nighttime routine. Just mix it with hot water or milk before bed. If you want to try Beam's best-selling Dream Powder, get up to 40% off for a limited time when you go to shopbeam.com/Dr. Phil and use code Dr. Phil at checkout. That's shopbeam.com/Dr. Phil and use code Dr. Phil for up to 40% off. Life is full of surprises, and emergencies often strike when we least expect them. But preparation is key, and that's where Jace Case comes in. With Jace Case, you'll have essential emergency prescription medications right at your fingertips, ready when you need them most. Whether it's an unexpected illness or a travel mishap, having the right meds on hand can turn a potential crisis into just a minor inconvenience. Don't let the unexpected catch you off guard. Jace Case gives you peace of mind so you can tackle life surprises with confidence. Be ready. Take charge today. Head over to jace.com, that's JASE.com, and when you check out, use the code PHIL, spelled PHIL, to get a discount on your order and to have the right meds on hand the moment you need them. Well, I'm here with Gubba, who says she thinks the president is a clone or being played by a member of the Illuminati using CIA disguises like a 5-second mask. How many of you in the audience think there's such a thing as a 5-second mask? Okay. You might be surprised to know that the 5-second mask is real. That's something that a member of the CIA, Jonah Mendez, who was in their disguise department, right? Talked about this as one of their tradecraft things that they use, kind of like you see in Mission Impossible movies, except a whole lot better, because they're real thin and they can use them in the field for disguise purposes. And this was some time ago, so technology's probably gotten quite a bit better since then, right?
Yeah, I would assume that it has.
It's a good thing that they have that technology, right? But you think the president may not even be Joe Biden.
Yeah, I don't think that it probably is Joe Biden. If you look at Joe Biden from 10, 20 years ago and the Joe Biden now, I am not going to gaslight myself into believing that is the same person.
Well, he's aged pretty much.
Yeah, he's aged, but if we pulled up a photo of you from 20 years ago and you now, I feel like, yes, there's age, and there's also photos and him on camera where it looks like he's scrunching a mask. So I think it is plausible to believe that he is potentially wearing a mask and they have somebody under there.
Well, I look pretty much the same. I've been bald.
Yeah.
I've been bald since I was 12, so
You look the same, and a lot of Illuminati members, some of them and the celebrities, they will not age, or they're wearing masks.
yeah. What would be the purpose in all of that?
Because they're not actually in control. They are giving us the facade that someone like Joe Biden is controlling us when there are people who are behind him pulling the strings.
Okay. Now, you think bones in the ground don't prove that dinosaurs existed?
No, I absolutely don't think just because there's a bone in the ground means that dinosaurs existed.
Well, what is that bone?
I think that bone could potentially be dragons. It could potentially be other animals that have gone extinct. But the idea of dinosaurs, I think, is a fairy tale.
You know, when you fact check that, you know, dragons are mentioned in Revelations, but when you talk about dinosaurs, there is science that verified that these bones are there and have been there a long time. You're just saying they're not necessarily dinosaur bones.
Well, I might have to fact check that because carbon dating for the bones only goes back 50,000 years. So then they have to make their guess on the sediment. And we have these ancient cultures who have depictions of not dinosaurs, depictions of dragons. And this is in a time when these cultures weren't talking. So why are they depicting dragons in writings and in art and in different forms of their culture?
Well, creationists try to discredit carbon dating, but the National Center for Science Education says that carbon dating is one of the most reliable radiometric dating methods of all. So it's pretty precise.
It only goes to 50,000 years for the bone, though. And then they make a guess on how old that bone is based on the sediment.
Okay.
So it's a guess.
So you're pretty suspicious of like food and big pharma,
Absolutely.
sunscreen.
Yes.
You're concerned that we're being lied to.
Yes, I absolutely do believe that.
And what's the purpose?
The purpose is to make us sick because when we are sick, we generate revenue. They don't want us to be healed.
All right. And you think that the kids that are growing up today in public schools are being conditioned in what way?
First of all, they're being taken away from the family most of the day. They have to ask for permission to go to the bathroom. They sit in a desk for 8 hours a day under uncomfortable lighting. They are going through curriculums that are made by the government. You don't know your teachers, so they are being conditioned to just go and work a 40-hour job. You send them to school when they're 5 years old. They start in their 40-hour school week, and they're just conditioned to go out into the job force.
What do you think should happen?
Homeschooling is a great alternative.
Okay, all right, we'll talk some more about that. Coming up, we're going to add a woman to the conversation who says she believes our own government could be behind 9/11, and some of the most high-profile mass shootings in our history, that these things are just kind of inside jobs. We're going to meet her after the break. Well, tonight we're talking about controversial and often misunderstood topic, conspiracy theories. Now, Melissa says she believes our government is orchestrating mass shootings to popularize gun control and disarm Americans so the government can take total control over all of us.
The CIA coined the term conspiracy theory for people who, like me, think outside of the box. The word conspiracy means to conspire or to go against. So they are saying that we are thinking of theories to go against the government. I don't consider myself a conspiracy theorist. I consider myself a theorist. Mass shootings are what the government calls false flags. It's something to push a narrative or an agenda. One of the casualty events that really struck a chord with me was the Aurora, Colorado Batman movie shooting. I don't think he acted alone because I don't think he did it. There are multiple gas masks leading away from the movie theater in the parking lot. There are witnesses stating they saw people running out towards the area where the gas masks were found. And then the shooter himself is found in his car, so incapacitated that he can't even stand up and walk to the cop car. For Columbine, several students said that people came in normal clothing and just started shooting after Dylan and Eric had already gone through everything. There are people who ran for cover at hotels for the Las Vegas shooting who said there were people walking down the streets going into hotels trying to shoot at people further. Victims and eyewitnesses tend not to lie about things like that. It is a traumatic moment and you're gonna remember every second of that.
You think these mass shootings are inside jobs?
Yes.
False flag?
Yes.
What do you think about the concept of Occam's razor or the principle of parsimony?
I'm not familiar with them.
It is the scientific principle that says the simplest explanation is typically correct. It's like you say you can see a light in the sky and you can say, well, that could be a UFO, or it could be a star, or it could be just a natural phenomenon, or it could be aliens invading the earth, which is the most likely explanation. And Occam's razor, the principle of parsimony, is the simplest explanation of a phenomenon is often the best one. And you're saying that these mass shootings are some kind of government conspiracy to control us and make us dependent on the government by giving up our guns so they can control us completely, correct?
That's correct, yes.
How likely is that, as opposed to someone being deranged and doing something based on that deranged thinking?
Don't get me wrong, there are people out there that are deranged and do awful things at their own volition. It just gets to a point where the government has lied several times about incidents to cover things up. And so when they're plastering it on the TV for days and days and days, why? Why do we need to see this awful stuff for days and weeks on end? It makes you wonder. They have proven through declassified documents that they do awful events and they cover it up so that we don't know. I wish I knew why they do it, but.
Well, that's a big leap to saying that they're going around shooting up schools and killing children to advance gun control. And the reason I'm focusing on that is because that is an insult to people that have lost children. It's an insult to people that have suffered the pain of all of this, to muddy the waters by saying their own government is in there shooting their children. I think that is an absurd assertion for which you have absolutely no evidence whatsoever, but yet we ask you, show us your evidence for that. You say, well, Google it.
That was actually not my answer. I couldn't provide my sources because the internet is so censored that everything that existed has been gone.
Well, I'm actually summarizing your answer because there are some things you said you didn't want to talk about because you didn't want to open yourself up to being sued.
Correct.
So don't criticize me for summarizing your answer because you asked me not to be specific.
No, there are a lot
So
of
if you
things,
want to get specific, I can get damn specific.
and I don't mean any sort of disrespect to victims because they are victims. I think it is absolutely disgusting that the government would do things to our own citizens of this country like that. And that's why I say what I say.
Well, we'll talk about that. Now, it is documented fact that part of JFK's brain went missing after he was assassinated, and that we don't know what happened to it. Melissa will tell us her theory about that after the break. Did you know that high blood pressure is the #1 risk factor for mortality? 1 in 2 adults has it. That's a 50-50 chance you are a walking time bomb. But here's the good news. You can take control of your blood pressure naturally without relying on Big Pharma. 120 Life combines delicious super fruit juices proven to help lower blood pressure. Backed by hundreds of doctors and trusted by thousands with real results, it's a solution you can rely on. The best part? It's risk-free. Try it for 2 weeks. If your numbers don't improve, you get your money back. Lower blood pressure or your money back. Nothing to lose, everything to gain. Go to 120life.com. That's 120life.com and use code PHIL, P-H-I-L, to save 15% and get free shipping. This is serious. This is your life we're talking about. 120 Life can help. $36 trillion. That is the U.S. debt, and it gets deeper and deeper by the day. Our debt has never been higher, nor have the stakes. The government is looking to slash the federal budget by $2 trillion, and no one knows what that will mean for your job, savings, and future. I've seen a lot in my time, and there's one thing I know for sure. You need to prepare before it's too late. I trust Preserve Gold to help protect my wealth, and I strongly urge you to do the same. They are the only precious metals firm I trust and recommend to my family, friends, and audience, and they have a special offer just for you. Text Dr. Phil to 50505 to get your free precious metals guide from Preserve Gold. With gold prices recently breaking records and analysts predicting this trend to continue throughout 2025, you cannot afford to wait. As a bonus, you can get up to $15,000 with a qualified purchase from Preserve Gold. So don't wait. Text Dr. Phil to 50505 today.
MK Ultra stands for Mind Control Ultra, and it was a program that the CIA started in the early 60s as experiments to mess with brainwaves to see if they could manipulate us into doing things. I think that the government does this to not let us know that we truly have the power. If we had to go against the government, we would take control.
Well, tonight we're pulling back the curtain on conspiracy theories. 50% of Americans believe in at least one of them. 50% of Americans. What do you think happened to the brain?
I think it went missing because it could prove that there was more than one shooter.
You think somebody has it?
I think they probably destroyed it.
You don't think any or most of the high-profile shootings have been reported straight?
No.
You think the Las Vegas shooting was not reported straight? You think the Aurora shooting was not reported straight? The JFK shooting, the Columbine shooting, you think they were all distorted in the way they were reported?
Correct. Yes.
Despite the fact that there were extensive investigations that confirm what's been reported.
Yes, and there's still a lot of declassified information that we don't know yet either.
Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of information we do know.
Yes.
But you discount that.
I don't discount it, but I ask questions and I look at where the pieces don't fit for me.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, James says he believes that Diddy and Jeffrey Epstein have a lot in common. What are some of the parallels that you're talking about with Diddy and Epstein?
Yeah, so recently his ex-producer, Rodney Jones, detailed in about an 87-page lawsuit that Diddy was, drugging people, lacing drinks with drugs, sex trafficking, hiring prostitutes, and he says he witnessed him commit a murder. He also alleges that there's cameras throughout all of Diddy's homes and properties, and that he has film of athletes, politicians, and artists. And it's a lot of parallels there between it. If he changes his name again, it's probably going to be Lil Epstein.
Do you think there was a connection between the two?
I haven't seen any evidence of that. I think he was just doing it for personal power and gain. Mm-hmm. But if he ends up killing himself, or overdoses anytime soon, maybe that would even draw more similarities.
What do you do with this information?
I typically post on my Facebook. I ask people to convince me I'm wrong, and sometimes they change my mind, and sometimes they don't.
And does Facebook allow it to stay up? Do they ever take it down?
I've had friends say they can't find certain posts, but I don't experience it myself.
Yeah. Have you had things taken down?
Yes, I have had things taken
Have you
down.
had things taken down?
Absolutely.
How many people here in the studio audience have put things up on social media and had them taken down? Stand up if you've had stuff taken down. Okay. So it was something content-wise that they took down, right? Very interesting. We'll talk about that. Next, a man who says he is a former conspiracy theorist who was so deep down the rabbit hole that had he been paid for time spent online, he'd be a multimillionaire today. How true is that for a lot of people? We'll be right back. Well, Antonio says he was suicidal before he joined the conspiracy theory community, but he says that after coming out of an obsessive 7-year spiral about secret societies and false flags, he's written a book to help others do the same. Take a look.
We're always looking for evidence to prove ourselves right.
It all started in 2001 when a guy in a bar asked Perez if he'd heard of Jones and his InfoWars site. Before long, Perez was lost in the world of the Illuminati, satanic pedophiles, and the New World Order.
At the time, I had a lot of depression, a lot of real anxious thoughts, and the idea that there was some kind of evil force on the outside helped to explain why I was so miserable all the time.
He says conspiracy theories fill the need.
I wanted to be that person that had that knowledge coming down the hill saying, you guys, I have this secret knowledge that can help everybody.
Today, Perez is what you might call a recovering conspiracy addict, and he's trying to help others kick the habit.
Well, Antonio says he was suicidal over a girl when he first got into this conspiracy world and kind of got pulled into it. You say this helped your depression, essentially. Was it just a distraction?
Yeah, at the time, I'd been depressed most of my life, had a lot of, childhood trauma. And these conspiracy theories that helped me to think it was things on the outside, like it was the Illuminati. That's why the world is a miserable place. It wasn't what I was doing from the inside.
Okay, so you found somebody to blame it on.
Yeah.
When you started pulling back from that and owning it and dealing with it, did it get better?
Yes, and even up until a few months ago, I had like maybe 1% that still believed in 9/11 was an inside job, which I actually had dealt with had a therapist that helped me to get rid of that last little bit. It was it didn't happen overnight. It was a kind of a gradual process.
Mm-hmm. The number one need among all people is acceptance. Our number one fear is rejection. I see people sometimes in these conspiracy theorist groups that they find bonding, they find acceptance. They find people that think the way they do, and so they start talking to each other, and they find a sense of kinship among people that share their thoughts. Did that happen with you?
100%. When I found the online community, it fed into the confirmation bias. So that's when it was almost like a pyramid scheme. I got pulled into it, and I wanted to pull other people into it to wake people up, I guess. We could all be one miserable mess together.
Yeah. It's interesting how much that is true in society right now. How much people live in bubbles. Maybe the conspiracies don't sound as strange when you talk about them out loud as saying, the moon landing never happened or whatever. That may sound pretty far out for some people, but right now, we do have a nation that's living in bubbles. And it's like, hey, come over and get in our bubble here. We'll tell each other what we think, and we'll all think the same way, and we belong to something. And we don't want to hear what somebody else thinks, which creates division and kind of an inbred thinking. But that's really true in conspiracy theory groups, right?
Oh, yeah.
And what if somebody starts to question the theory? Somebody starts to push back and go, hey, come on, this is getting a little weird.
At least for me, a lot of conspiracy theorists will call people sheep. So I almost put up a mental block, and I just thought like, oh, they don't want to know. But if somebody pushed back on me, I would go back and I would do more research. I would watch more videos just to reinforce my beliefs and keep that feeling of safety and acceptance.
Yeah. The most dangerous lie is that which has a kernel of truth. And, in everything that everybody's talked about here, there's a kernel of truth in some of everything. I mean, the government does do bad things. They do cover-ups. There are things that maybe it's 10 years later, 20 years later, it is found out that they weren't telling the truth about something. And so you go, well, there you go. Coming up, we're going to talk to a fact checker right after the break. Well, Evan Hansen is the president and CEO of factland.org. He says that we've experienced a big step back on facts in recent years, and the culprits spreading most misinformation are not foreign bots, but Americans who believe clickbait headlines without reading the full news article.
Yes.
And you fight back against that with getting into the facts. Talk about that.
So my background was at Twitter. We worked on a curation team that our job was really responsible for verifying and discovering high quality content to kind of combat some of the more extreme views that were polarizing the discussion on the platform and making more toxic. Well, we had a team of over 100 people that were checking things in 7 or 8 languages across the globe. And my conclusion was, that's not enough. And I started working with some AI programming at Twitter to try to figure out how we could automate some of the identification. But even then, you run into problems of fact-checking happens where if you're interested in checking in the facts, you might go to a fact-checking site like PolitiFact or factcheck.org. There's numerous publications that do this. But in order for that content to make its way to the end user, they have to be curious. They have to actually want to do it. So our idea with Factland is to actually put the labeling or the contextualization of questionable or very contentious information directly where it's published.
So they don't have to navigate away from the story to get the facts of the story.
Correct.
It's right there for them to see. How much difference does that make in terms of what people are willing to process?
Well, I think you see a version of this now on X. It's called Community Notes. It's a very similar concept to what we're trying with Factland. It's just ours is more open-ended. See it there, it works quite effectively in terms of giving people a sense of a nudge to say, hey, maybe I shouldn't take this at face value.
Yeah, and I get a show book for every show that I do, and you can see, you just mentioned MK Ultra, and I've got that note here. We're going to talk about that. My fact check is right in the middle of it. Then we got the next statement. I come down, my fact check is right in the middle of it. Then we go to the next statement. My fact check is right there. We go to the next one, 9/11. My fact check is right there. Fact check, fact check, fact check. It's right there in the flow of the story.
Right.
So when I'm conducting the interview and somebody says something, I don't have to navigate away and go 10 pages while I'm talking to you to find out what's going on, which makes the flow of the interview much smoother, and I'm able to know what's right and what's not. And that's something that I wish you would permeate everything in these stories, magazine stories, podcast, everything, so people can see it right there.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping to achieve by creating a kind of a grassroots, community-based approach that could scale to the size and the speed of the problem.
Yeah, exactly. James?
I think everybody could agree that fact-checking is good, but you said you worked at Twitter. When you were at Twitter doing the content moderation, did you have interactions with the FBI, the CIA, Homeland Security, members of the
I personally did not.
But are you aware that happened, right?
Well, I've heard rumors of that. I mean,
It's not rumors. It was released in the Twitter files. You can look it up. You can actually see the information.
like I say, that was not my purview. So I focused on
You focus on fact-checking and
verifying.
Oftentimes the CIA, the FBI, the Homeland Security would literally send Excel spreadsheets and say, we think you should hide this story. We think you should suppress this. We think you should ban this person.
Moderation was not what I did at Twitter. Mm-hmm. It was a big part of how Twitter maintained its sort of curb appeal, as you might call it, to the advertisers and so forth. You see what Elon Musk has done recently with X. It's like late night television ads on it now. It's like,
but we all suspected it was happening with the shadow banning, and everybody was gaslighting us and saying it wasn't happening. Then when Elon bought it, he released the information, and it turns out they were doing it.
What do you want to say?
I wanted to add, so I got fact-checked, and I fact-checked on sunscreen. I'm sharing about what the chemicals in sunscreen are doing, scientifically backed, and I went and looked at the fact check. Well, come to find out, the scientists who were in my fact check saying I'm wrong about sunscreen, they are in cahoots with Johnson & Johnson, who has a big sunscreen line with these chemicals. So it almost seems they want to shut me up through their fact check.
Yeah, I would agree that fact-checking has this problem about sourcing and citation, right? You have this issue of, well, who is the fact-checker and who's checking the fact-checker? At what point does that fact-check become suspect? And I think that's a fair thing. I think there should be some skepticism. You do see people talking about the funding sources and things like that of fact-checking organizations, so people will dismiss that content out of hand. And I think that's a real problem. And what we need with fact-checking is less of a scolding and more of a consensus building, a mechanism to bring people, as you said earlier, about bubbles, getting people to talk across bubbles and compare notes. And what we're trying to build with Factland is a new model which allows people to compare notes in real time with each other, and then have a review of that content by a random anonymous sample jury, which is drawn from a large sample of the population. So you ultimately get a read on what the consensus view of society is about this thing. And let's say you're wrong. If you disagree with that, that's your business. We're not here to tell people what opinions to take, but we are going to tell you you're out of step. You have a different view from what most people think about this.
Yeah, which is valuable. We'll be right back. The important thing is you do need to check your sources. You can pull something up that tells you, well, this is A, B, or C. Well, who is it that's telling you it's A, B, and C? If they've got a vested interest in it, you got to look at that with a jaundiced eye. I mean,
so there's some interesting research that's been done into the citation question, which is a kind of a baseline of journalistic credibility. You cite your sources. And some journalism professors have gone into this, and they look at this idea of confirmation bias around citation and sourcing. And it turns out when you show people the source of a news article, they get worse at predicting whether that headline is true or false. And the reason for that is that if you are predisposed to believe the New York Times, you're more likely to believe it when it's false. And vice versa, if you disagree with Fox News, you're more likely to get it wrong when Fox got it right. So it's a strange kind of problem that we have about the trust that people place. And is there any authority that we can agree to that would say, this is credible? And we just don't seem to be there anymore. No one can agree on what's considered a credible source.
Yeah, and that's tough. Yeah, what do you want to say?
Not so much on the fact-checking, but for yourself that are still a conspiracy theorists, what do exposing conspiracy theories do for you? For me, like I said, it gave me safety and acceptance. Is there any kind of emotional need it helps you with?
Not for me. For me, it's just, it keeps my brain going. It keeps me motivated to just continue whatever it is that I'm doing.
For me, at the end of the day, I'm just sharing my life online.
I started off being curious and wanting to know. So just a desire to understand what's going on. The hard part about all of this is everyone wants to tell you conspiracy theories are fake, but everybody on this stage could go down the list and we could all probably name 10 actual conspiracies that are disgusting, evil. Tuskegee Airmen, for example, Nazi-level criminality, not treating black airmen for 50 years with syphilis and pretending to treat them. It's reprehensible. So when you hear things like that, it does make me open to the idea that there's some strange things going on. So I think it's a spectrum.
I would argue that there's a big difference between the kind of investigations that unearth Tuskegee compared to what a lot of the claims are that purport as
that's a fair statement.
Controversy. I mean, it's almost like people say, I saw an image or video on the internet and it didn't make sense to me. And that's basically it. The claim is meant to sow doubt, not seek truth. There's no pursuit of an investigation. Maybe OJ was the last one who tried to pursue an investigation of the truth, right? I mean, that is a huge difference. And if you think about the jeopardy, the risk that people put themselves through to take down real conspiracies versus what conspiracy theorists chatter about on the internet, it's very, very stark, because 120 journalists died last year. They were people who were trying to get the truth. And I tell you what, you don't strap a 500-kilogram bomb to the bottom of a car of a guy who took a red arrow and pointed to a smoke puff on a YouTube video. But that did happen in Italy to 2 Italian judges who took on the Sicilian mob. And so those are the stakes we're up against. These people put themselves, their lives in jeopardy. And what is the purpose of these other comments, these other kind of narratives? Who benefits? Well, I'll tell you who benefits. It's state actors, governments who have an agenda to shift public opinion and to shift policy and maybe even political regimes. And also social media influencers, people who have large followings. They profit. This is a narrative that earns them money. And that's what it's about. It's about power and greed. It's not about seeking the truth.
Yeah, and that's what you've got to take into account when you read these things. And one of my main concerns is that with the generation that is coming up now, we are not teaching critical thinking. And that's what we have to do. We've got to teach these kids to not just take something on its face, and instead to really think critically about these things and question both sides of an issue or multi-sides of an issue and test it against reality and ask hard questions. And it seems like the only time we ever truly move forward as individuals is when we prove ourselves wrong. If not, we're just telling ourselves what we want to hear, and that's very comfortable. Well, I'd like to thank all of my guests for being here tonight. I want you to check out Eben's site, factland.org, and you can pick up my new book, We've Got Issues, How You Can Stand Strong for America's Soul and Sanity, everywhere books are sold. There is so much going on here right now, a new book, a new network, and if you don't have it, you can get the Merit app by going to the Apple Store or Google Play. And to keep up with it all, just text me at 59627. Just simply type Phil, P-H-I-L, and we'll keep you posted every step of the way of what's going on. Appreciate you watching. We'll see you next time.